I have to admit this time, I haven't been paying attention to casting stuff this past week as much. I don't think there was a ton. I think just more like footage, right?
Yeah, it was only a little bit. Like, Daniel, who plays Tyson, posted a bunch of photos on Instagram, and the like highlight from that was that he posted a photo of him taking a class
Yeah.
on how to be like a blacksmith, because Tyson is a blacksmith. And I was like, that is amazing that he took an entire class on his own that he paid for for like probably one scene in the very last episode of this season, but he still did it because he wants, obviously he feels like doing that would make him feel more connected to Tyson. But that was cute. There's a couple other pictures of like, you know, him with them, like the other actors and stuff, if you want to see stuff like that. And a picture of him on a horse, because all of them have done like horse training, because I'm assuming for like the
Hippocampy.
yeah, and actually that does make sense. And the what is the chariot scene? Maybe one or both of those things.
Yeah, because I mean, like the hippocampy, they probably can use horse as kind of like the basis of them. Just because, I mean, the whole idea of that being a Poseidon thing is that waves look like the manes of horses, and that's why he's also the god of horses.
Yeah, and I could also see them using that as like a way for them to film on something that's not so all CGI.
Yeah.
And making it look like they're in water and CGI it after they film it, because that's a definite like theme of this season, is that doing things more practically, like how Daniel doesn't have to wear like any CGI anything at all. He can just be himself, and then they'll add on like Tyson's like one eye in post-production stuff, which makes that much better. I'm trying to think of one clip I saw today that made me that definitely made me laugh was Arian did like a thing. I don't know who this person is because I am too old, but he's somebody who does like Twitch streaming. I've seen that video that Arian did where they were like doing a video about the Eurydice Orpheus myth.
Oh, with Thomas Sanders.
Maybe that wasn't the same guy. I thought it was the same guy, but I don't remember this guy's name. But I just know he's British, and he's somebody I've seen mentioned only around like him as somebody that he like jumps on his live streams on Twitch sometimes. And I saw a clip today of Arian talking about how Tamara, who plays Thalia, is the only person in the entirety of the set that is British. And so that him and Walker are absolutely bullying her in a way that you should absolutely do to British people. I'm sorry. British people have been so fucking rude to Americans on this app particularly for the last 3 years. It made me laugh so hard to see Arian say that the other day. They were like making sandwiches, and they were so they have like pieces of bread, and they were like, "Is this weird for you? Do you want to like put beans on this?" I was like, "Yes." Keep absolutely bullying her the entire time. And the other host guy is British, so he was like, "Oh my god." I was like, that's like the least that you guys deserve at this point.
Yeah.
People like making fun of your ridiculous like, you're not in World War II anymore. You don't need to eat baked beans on like anything. If you like, I like baked beans, but there's a lot of other good food you can add to things that isn't beans. And so that just made me laugh so much today. I was just like, that's exactly what should be happening when it comes to that. The only other thing I wanted to say, because we were talking about the actor stuff last week, is there's this like tiny little clip that somebody posted from the same scene we were talking about last week that we're not sure about, but it was just a little clip of Daniel like talking to Leah before the scene. and like making her laugh and things like that. And like Walker was off to like the side, not talking to them. And I'm like, I feel like I should just say this now because I know that there's probably going to be times, and this probably already happened, I just don't know it, where people have seen things like that and think like, oh, does like Walker and Leah not want to talk to each other or something like that. It's not that. It's because he's literally doing a job.
Yeah.
Walker one of the things with acting that I always think is really interesting is how some actors are more like Leah, where you can be like laughing and joking and being yourself right before you start like a really serious scene, and then as soon as the scene starts you just like flip into it, and they can just do that. Like some actors can just do that. But some other actors, and Walker has mentioned this in interviews before, they don't do that. Like they have to like kind of stay in like the general headspace. Like remember him doing interviews when people are asking him like, how the hell did you do that scene in like the 5th episode when you thought you were being suffocated to death, basically. And he was talking about how the way he called it was, I was in a depressed zone, is what he used the words for it. And it said he just kind of tried to stay in that zone instead of talking to people. Because when you're around people, you want to like make jokes and not be in that zone anymore. So he like said he felt bad because he basically had to like stop talking. But it's also a thing of, his character is the character with the most lines.
Yeah.
So he has to stay alone because if you get out of like your rhythm, you're not going to be able to remember your lines. And then doing the scene is going to take a lot longer. And like this child only had 10 days off over their 8-month filming thing for season 1. And it's probably going to be similar for season 2. And so I just want to put that out there now. That it's not that he's ignoring Leah. It's not that they don't get along. It's just that his process for filming is different from hers.
Yeah.
How that is.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I know you've looked up at least Walker's full natal chart, but what I remember off the top of my head is sun signs, and he's a Capricorn, she's a Libra. Yeah. So she's gonna be more sociable. Like she's gonna be more sociable. He's gonna be more in work mode. It just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely sums up them just with those two things. That he would be more like intense and need to like focus, and she would be somebody that her version of focusing is by making jokes and being silly with people right before she has to like do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the only thing from that kind of stuff that I can remember seeing, thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, luckily there's no big drama or anything like happening right now. It seems to be pretty slow and steady. If you follow any of the kid actors, you'll see like they're really good about sharing each other's stuff, sharing Rick's stuff, like when there's book announcements and stuff. So, and even like the directors, the showrunners, anytime anybody posts anything having to do with the show on Instagram, that's official at least, you're going to see it from them. I don't think they share necessarily the fan clips. That's when you've got to start following, like, I know the one that we share to each other a lot is Percy Jackson or something like that. Mm-hmm. Updates on Walker has weird boundaries, but we do follow them for news. Yeah, so like some of these stan accounts, you also have to remember that they are ran by teenagers who don't have the best online boundaries right now. So you might see things that piss you off if you want to get the show news that way.
Yeah. Yeah, like watch out, I guess, for those accounts. Like I follow them because I want to know, like it makes me more nervous not knowing what they're doing than not seeing it and just wondering. So I follow a couple of those just to kind of keep track of what's going on before the insanity gets to like a crazy amount. Mm-hmm. But it is like they do post things like that if you want to see it, because obviously the more official accounts aren't going to post clips of themselves that haven't come out yet. Yeah, I think that's the only stuff that I can think of. Oh, also, you can play my fun autism game, which is that you can figure out who is filming by who is posting stories and who isn't.
Yeah, you'll see
every
like
single day. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fun.
Yeah, so like what you'll see when you follow them and you start watching their stories is like how Instagram will put all of the people you watch very actively up front in the little story section. Mm-hmm. You can tell because you'll see the same like 3 people, but you won't see Walker, and then you'll see Walker later at night or something. It's a pretty fun game.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's just like funny to see. Like you can, like there was this whole thing like a couple months ago where a different child actor that I only know of because they would keep getting referenced being friends with the other kids on the show. And he did something very stupid. He got caught saying like racist things and then tried to do like my black friend says it's okay sort of thing to like say that it's all right. So that obviously didn't go very well. And literally watching his following account the day that happened, which was like right when they started filming, you could literally watch the different groups of kids realize what he did and then talk to him probably and then unfollow him. It was like Aryan, Charlie, and Dior did it at once, and then like a couple hours later Walker and Leah and the other kids were all gone too, and I was like, wow, some like you can literally see how they were probably in some meeting or something, and then it was just like bye.
Yeah,
like, that was quick. That was like I was like, wow, that was kind of shocking how much that happened in like a 6-hour time, and you can literally just see it happening. And I was just like, okay, sorry kid. Like, yeah. I guess that just happens sometimes when you say words you're never supposed to say when you're a white person ever. And that whole situation was funny because he accidentally showed it when he was on live. Like, he just showed his screen and it just was on there. So I was like, you can't even blame anybody for this but yourself for being ridiculous and forgetting that you said that before you just showed it to everybody.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Somebody said like they seem like a good set, and they very much are.
Yeah,
like it's a very happy set where you can bully your new castmate for being British and everything would be fine because that's just how they are.
Yeah, and these kids seem to have good morals. The fact that they all like swiftly unfollowed that kid kind of shows.
Yeah, you can literally like the thing with that was shown was you can tell like that there were conversations happening, and then. Never mind, like all just like never mind, like somebody talked to him and then they didn't like the answer they got and so they all were just like anyway bye.
Yeah,
that's the best way to handle stuff like that, especially because that one kid, like when that initially happened, he followed Leah and like before that he was not following her and just followed her as being like, oh, I'm gonna follow this like one black actress that I know of, and she never followed him back.
She was like, this will be the one black friend.
Like, why is your friend suddenly following me out of nowhere for no reason? And it's like, I don't know. It was just such teenager stuff.
Yeah, we got serious with the chapters again, and these chapters were so serious. As I read them, they blended together for me, and I forgot that I had finished one and gone on to the other, and I was like, do I still have another chapter to read? Yeah, because they like suck you in. And we have some good discussions that we can kind of shape around it because there's more golden child nonsense. I feel like I have to call out Sally at one point. And
we're definitely going to call out Sally. I got so mad about that all over again.
Yeah.
And I also have like the most petty like thing to talk about that means absolutely nothing. But I have to say it because of where I live. That has nothing to do with anything, but I was just like, this is ruining my experience because of what we call things here that doesn't fit with like the rest of the world. And I was so confused picturing this in my head. So that's going to be like a nice break from all the very serious things.
Yeah. So we're starting with chapter 15 today. And so where we left off, the kids left the Hoover Dam in a very big hurry because they were getting chased by skeleton monsters. And they left via the angel statues that are at the Hoover Dam. So they're literally still in these giant metal angel arms flying over, I guess, like Arizona, New Mexico area towards San Francisco. We start off the chapter with them saying, hey, we need to head towards San Francisco. And the statues are like, yeah, we can see our friends. What was it? The Mechanics Monument. Yeah, and then they like make a really quick little reference to statues like to have fun too, so we might pop by the DeYoung Museum and like meet up with some girlies. It's just, it's a fun little thing to put in there. But what I put in my notes, like reading that, is I wonder what the mortals are currently seeing at the Hoover Dam. Like,
Yeah, like, and everywhere that they're flying over, do they just think that they're hallucinating? Like, what do they think they're seeing? I almost, like, want to know, like, what the mist thinks that they're seeing. Just, like, a giant bird or something? I don't know.
A weird plane of some sort. But at the dam itself, is it like they closed off the area with the monument and maybe it looks like it's being cleaned or repaired or something? Who knows?
Who knows?
Let's see. So, another thing that I made note of as they're flying towards San Francisco is that they say that because they're so bored on this flight, like Talia's eyes closed, she's scared of heights, so she is not doing anything. Percy and Grover are just kind of, bored. Grover's playing his pipes. Zoe is playing with her bow and arrow. Now, this is something I had to go to my resident sharpshooter for, which is they're going about 100 miles per hour in these angels' arms, and Zoe is shooting at stationary targets. And so I was asking, like moving a hitting target is hard in general, but when you are the moving thing and the target is stationary, from what I've heard at least, that's even harder. Mm-hmm. So she's just proving what a good shot she is here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all of the hundreds of years of work that the hunters do, I'm guessing.
Yeah, she's definitely like the best of the best too in the hunters.
Mm-hmm. And so this also gives Percy time to tell them about how he got away from the skeleton warriors. So he tells them about the mortal that just happened to help him out because she could see what was happening. Mm-hmm. And that's when Percy realizes, wait a second. My mom was able to see the Minotaur when we were getting attacked. And like, what else did he call out? She didn't seem surprised at all when I told her Tyson is a Cyclops. And those two things are the things he knows for sure. But of course, there were tons of instances of him seeing through the mist as a child that like he got in trouble for at school or, like caused a big situation at school. And she may have known they were real this whole time and just didn't say anything until it was like, okay, we're going to send you off to camp now, Percy, because it's the only thing I can do.
Yeah, when I read that and he was like, oh, that must have been so hard for my mom to be able to see all the things that she was afraid for me about. And I was like, okay, child, I understand why you're saying that, because the hardest thing when you have like the nice parent is seeing like their flaws. Like that's usually the thing that like opens up everything else, is seeing like the nice parents' flaws. But I was so mad like all over again, and then like somehow that just made me more angry than it did when we talked about it originally during like, when we were covering like season 1. Mm-hmm. I was just like, so she could literally see it, like she could literally see it and just looked right at it and then lied to her kid and told him that nothing was there. And this was definitely exacerbated by the fact that I did like one of those react videos where I rewatched episode 1. I usually don't watch that episode because I hate how like unhappy Percy is, and I do not enjoy watching him being gaslit by everybody around him who says that they love him. That's not a nice experience. And so I usually would skip that episode when I would watch the season. And so it just like hit me this time when I was watching it, that when he's doing that whole speech where he's saying like he gets mad at Sally and he's like, I think my brain is broken. I think something is really wrong with me. And he's like, stop telling me these stories. I know that this is a lie. He's saying that it like, I don't know why this didn't occur to me. Probably because I was like mildly dissociating whenever I watched season 1 or episode 1. He is saying that because he literally thinks that he is losing his mind. Mm-hmm. He thinks that he is hallucinating, because what else can he think? Like Grover and everyone at school says that they don't remember a Mrs. Dodds. And so he's like, obviously it's me. I'm the one that's wrong. I'm hallucinating so much that I made up an entire teacher that doesn't exist that attacked me and turned into a monster. And so he is mad at Sally in that scene because he's like, you're just making up ridiculous stories to make me feel better about myself so that I don't have to admit that I'm just crazy. And I'm like, you are 12 and you're yelling at your mom because you're like, stop like making up these stories to make me feel better about myself when I know that I'm just hallucinating. And part of me was like, is there a part of Percy's brain that like wonders if all of this isn't real? Considering that like that's like the setup to when he was introduced into this world. Like he never actually got, their conversation never actually finishes. He like starts to tell him stuff and then just stops. But I was just like, that is actually like horrific to think about how oh my God, I can like never accept the idea that the best case scenario was what Sally did. I understand that she didn't have that many options, but I will never believe that if Percy at like the age of 8 went to camp that he would have turned into like a maniacal killer like Luke, even if he was around him for a little bit longer. Because it's just, he already loved his mom. He would have gone home to see his mom in the same way that he did in all of the books that we read. It's not like he never would have seen her ever again. He already had like that good foundation with her until that point. And it's just, I can't accept the idea that that was like the best that could have possibly happened for him. And it's just so much worse to just think about what that would actually be like to have like your mom tell you all the time and for you to just think that you're just losing your mind, and then for her to suddenly just change on a dime when you're 12 and all of a sudden be like, actually no, you were right this entire time. And it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean I was right this entire time? Like, how can you can't do that to somebody's brain? It hurts your head a lot, and that makes you not remember anything.
Yeah. I mean, I can see a little bit of the nuance in the decision because I'm assuming here, and it may be wrong, that Sally may have known that Percy knowing the truth would attract more monsters. And so, yeah, like not telling him theoretically is a means of protection there. But when the monsters kept appearing anyway, that's when I would probably change my approach, you know, because like clearly there's something so enticing about my child that it doesn't matter that they don't even know. These monsters are already after them. And the other part of it that I can understand too is like teaching a child something like that when the world believes differently is a very rough thing, especially when it's a neurodivergent child, because you know that they're not going to be able to handle everybody else, you know, like not seeing it or not understanding it as well. So I'm trying to think of a good example. Have I ever told you my tooth fairy story with William? Yeah, I don't know if I've told it on this pod, but when William lost his first tooth, I decided, you know, everybody does the tooth fairy thing and he's sad about losing this tooth. So I'm going to tell him the tooth fairy story, but knowing my child, he's going to have some questions. So I was like looking up tooth fairy lore online, and I knew that one of his questions would inevitably be what happens to the teeth. And so one online thing that I read was like, oh yeah, it actually gets turned into fairy dust, which they use to put other children or keep other children asleep while they're retrieving their teeth or something like that, something of that effect. And when I told William this, he was horrified. He was like, I don't want my baby tooth ground up. What? No, you can't do this. And so I had to be like, shit, what do I do? What do I do? Tooth fairy isn't real. You know, like we make mistakes as parents with shit like this all the time. And like I then had to have the whole conversation of like, wait, what is real? What isn't? Should I tell him about Santa? Should I tell him about like all of the other things? And if I tell him these things, is he going to be able to handle those conversations at school? Like when the next time somebody comes in is like, I got $5 from the tooth fairy. I don't think people did that as much at his school, so it never actually became an issue in that way. But of course, my brain was thinking there are a bunch of people that believe in this mythos, and there's no harm in it, in my opinion. So why not? And it just didn't work out for me.
Yeah. The stuff I always think about with these things with Sally is also like you realize that your kid was like a wonderful, beautiful, like human being and you married somebody who was the worst person you could possibly think of to try to like, because the only thing you could think of to protect like your pure soul kid is to traumatize the fuck out of them so that they're no longer like that. Because that's all that did was he became very parentified and adult after that. Like you can't sit there, like those flashbacks they show in the 7th episode that feel very real. Like you can't sit there and have a kid when he is in 2nd grade listen to his mom argue with the school to have him stay there instead of just going home with her, and not realize that like he is causing problems in his mom's life, which means he's going to stop telling her about things that happened to him. Yeah. Because he doesn't want, he's like protecting his mom's feelings, and he was already doing that because he wasn't telling his mom that Gabe would hit him sometimes. And it's just a very depressing thought that she realized how great her child was and was like, let me surround him with the worst people imaginable, and that is somehow supposed to protect him. Like I remember when I went to school, when I was like the ages you were just talking about with William, where you're supposed to believe in like Santa and that kind of stuff. And like I was already an adult by the time I was in 2nd grade. And that sounds weird, but I just was. And so I went to school and I like wanted to believe in that stuff because I wanted to hang on to like anything that resembled like childhood like fantasy stuff. Yeah. But there was always a part of my brain that was like, this obviously like can't actually really be real, right? But it was more like me just like wanting to believe in it and not wanting that like that also like fantasy to be like shattered the way that everything else had already been shattered by that point. And that's why I was hanging on to it. And that's like absolutely what Percy was doing too during all these years of just like trying to hang on to anything until he, you know, thought he made up his entire like teacher at school and was like, no, I'm just, there's something wrong with me. And that's like, that's that on that. And it's just, it's very hard to think about how she literally could see all the things that he could see and just told him that it wasn't there anyway.
Yeah.
That's just such aggressive gaslighting, like really messes with you in a very intense way, especially that sort of gaslighting. It makes you question like so much of yourself. You just don't believe anything that you actually think or believe or think is true. And that's just a very intense way. And I hadn't really thought about that for a while and then did. And I was just like, wow, this is actually really bad. Like, yeah. I still like love Sally, but I'm just like, wow, this is really bad. Like one day when Percy has the time, he definitely will go through a phase of getting really mad at Sally and probably not wanting to talk to her for a while because of that. There's actually a really good fan fiction that wrote about that, but the fan fiction made it happen way too fast. Yeah. Like when I was reading it, I was like, it was basically like a fanfic where he went to like a like an outpatient like mental hospital sort of place, but he was inpatient or whatever. But it was like his months at this place going through all these traumatic things, and like it was very accurate to real life because I did that before. But I was like, this is happening way too quickly. Like usually you don't like sit there and acknowledge that and then a couple months later are fine with that parent and still talk to them like everything is great. Like you would need time to like feel betrayed by them. Mm-hmm. And then over time, like, you know, get over it, but you need like space first. But yeah, I was just like, wow, that is a lot.
Yeah, and I mean the other like nuanced reason that Sally had to keep him away, and this is more show Sally than it is book Sally, because book Sally never talks about this motivation, which is keeping him away from the Olympians because she doesn't like how they operate as a family. And I do love that they gave her at least that motivation in the show because it makes a lot more sense than just oh, well, if the monsters knew about you, there might be more of them attacking. So, yeah, Show Sally is a little bit more sympathetic in this respect, at least to me.
Yeah, you can understand a bit more why she did that. It still feels like one of those things of like, was Gabe any like worse than like what the Olympians would be? Like,
exactly. She didn't exactly give him a life that was so different or so much better.
yeah, like even like up to like the book that just came out, there's a scene where Percy remembers when he was little and he hates remembering being a kid because it makes him feel powerless remembering what it was like living with Gabe. And I was like, yeah, like I hate also my, like, whenever I see those like there's a nostalgia accounts, I like hate them, and they have like millions of followers and I actively hate them because they just make me really depressed. And so I can't do any of that stuff because I'm like, I would rather literally die than ever think about my childhood or even imagine going back to that ever. You can't make me do that. And
Yeah.
it's the same sort of thing of like, it's not fun to remember that. And if he was at camp, he at least would have been around people that understood him, weren't telling him that he was hallucinating.
Yeah.
For 4 less years, which would have been nice.
Yeah, it would have been so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, as a mom, I sort of get it, but I sort of don't. It's one of those decisions where it's like, I can see why you decided that, but I still don't think it was the best thing.
Mm-hmm. And it honestly, when it comes down to it, it's a really great way for Rick Riordan to show the absolutely impossible decisions that parents have to do when they're like, granted, Sally actively chose out like an abusive spouse in that way, but you could very easily say that both of our moms chose out abusive spouses even if they weren't actually aware of it, or the other way around, like your dad. So it's like that's not that far away from what actually happens in real life, and it is a really good way to kind of show and make you think about like how difficult those situations are, that they're not as black and white as people want it to be, and it is this complicated.
Yeah.
When you're figuring it all out, that's why it takes sometimes years for you to come back to people and then be okay with talking to them or whatever again, because you've worked through enough stuff where you understand how complicated all of that actually is.
I do think it's definitely telling that there was already a homeless guy when they landed, even in the Embarcadero, which like is very like homelessness is definitely a huge problem there.
I was like, yeah, this is accurate. I remember that.
Yes. So that's where they part with the statues. Let's see. And then after they depart with the statues, they're kind of like figuring out what to do. And this is where they remember they were told to ask Nereus, the old man of the sea. Mm-hmm. And so in order to find him, I don't understand this part as much, but like Zoe takes them into Goodwill and she dresses Percy up. And like her idea is, oh, I dressed you like a typical vagrant, but she just put him in a flannel shirt and really, really baggy jeans with a floppy hat. Yeah, I don't know what she was going there. It feels a little racial to me.
Yeah, I did not appreciate that as a poor person, because there's been many years of my life where, especially as being like a fat poor person, that you can't find any clothes that you can actually afford that will fit you. Like from like 2018 to like 2021, the only new clothes I bought was the stuff that I would find at like Goodwill and stuff like that. And so some of them were like way too big and just were not a style at all. They were just like literally clothes that would fit me. And so like weirdly, this reminded me of the TV show where when that scene they filmed outside where Annabeth is threatening Tyson, and Tyson is wearing like the clothes that the school gave him, where like the jacket is way too small, but the pants he has on is like 3 sizes too big. And I was like, yeah, that is what poor people wear. Like when poor people don't have any clothes, you just are given whatever is left over. And I'm like, yeah, that's the exact sort of shit you wear when you're poor and you don't have any money and you can't afford to actually buy clothes that fit you. You just wear what's left over. And so that's what this reminded me of. And I'm like, I really don't like that. Even though Zoe is like thousands of years old, I'm like, I don't appreciate like somebody being dressed like what I would wear and being like, oh, you just look like like a homeless person. And
yeah, she uses like, the word vagrant, but that's just old timey for you look homeless.
And I'm like, do I look like a homeless person? Like, this is like a weird factoid from my life, but when my dad was like 50, whatever, like a few years before he died, before he got dementia, he wore like really baggy clothes and stuff like that all the time, which is like a weird autistic thing that we just like baggy clothes because we don't like it actually touching us. But he would go to like the same like gas stations or whatever and get the newspaper, and he would tell me that people at the gas station thought that he was homeless because of the clothes that he wore, and that he would like wear like dirty clothes because he didn't care. And he would come in every day and just like get the newspaper and leave. And I was like, and I remember at the time just being like, but you're not homeless. But that's what that reminds me of stuff like that. And I'm just like, I don't appreciate that, Zoe, even though, and also I'm not sure how I feel about Rick Riordan writing about homeless people this way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like this. Like, I've almost been homeless so many times. That's it. Homeless people don't look homeless most of the time. That's like, there are the definite types that you kind of see in San Francisco by like the Bay. There's definitely those sort of like stereotypical sort of homeless people as you would imagine them to be. But most of the time, homeless people just look like normal people.
Yeah.
Like, we used to see them when I worked at grocery stores all the time. We would give them a bunch of like free samples and give them as much as we could so that they would come to our store to eat, basically, and stay there as long as possible before someone would take them out. And so I would give them like an outrageous amount of food and until that I could give them without a manager getting mad at me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I also can't afford the food in this store. Like, oh God. So I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a weird outfit choice for sure, but she says we're gonna make you blend in because Nereus, he likes to sunbathe and hang over, you know, like on the pier with the other homeless people, and you'll recognize him by the smell. Which, like, that's okay. I can see where they were going, especially because Percy describes the smell later, but it's kind of funny because he's like, okay, which smell am I trying to smell here?
I liked the part here where Percy was just thinking, like, I am on this trip with a satyr who's trying to find Pan, the daughter of Zeus, 1,000-year-old hunter, and like somebody else I'm not remembering, and still I'm like sitting here going off wearing weird clothes with no information whatsoever. Like, the line is like, why am I here with all these powerful friends if nobody can actually help me?
Yeah.
Like, what? And I am like, that is like a valid thought to be like, how am I somehow the one that is still like bait?
Yeah, this one is definitely a quest unlike the last two that we read where things are happening on accident. Like, he's getting to the right place by complete luck this time. And part of me is going to attribute that to Dahlia being there because, I mean, Zeus is kind of the god of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it just seems like everything is getting set before him in a way that he doesn't have to do too much work. And so, yeah, they landed in San Francisco. They happen to land right where Nereus is. And of course, the conversation with Nereus doesn't even actually yield too much. But what was interesting was they drew us back to Heracle's imagery here with the instructions on what he's supposed to do when he actually catches him, which is you're supposed to catch him and hold on as tight as possible, and then he'll tell you a secret. And this is ripped directly from the mythology that's referenced with Zoe's background, the Apple of the Hesperides. So we're kind of getting set up for that very, like, almost in a very Heracles-like way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This book's like, I forget where I saw this, but somebody once pointed out that like every book is based on like a myth.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what the first one is. It's probably something very obvious, but I can't remember it ever. And then obviously the second one is Odysseus. This book is Hercules or Heracles.
Yeah.
For better or worse, that's the definite like theme of this book, is having to do with him and what he stood for and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like they probably tried to go regular Perseus with the lightning thief. Of course, there's an amalgamation of heroes that you can kind of say it's an paying homage to in each book, but they all do seem to centralize on one hero. I would argue that Sea of Monsters, there's 3 heroes that have been on the Sea of Monsters, 2 of which are very heavily favored. Odysseus is just the most famous one. But Jason and the Argonauts, he also saw a lot of the same things that Heracles saw. I think he was at the Mount of Despair literally right after Heracles. So, yeah, so her instructions are the exact same instructions that Heracles got to get directed towards the apple of the Hesperides. But let's see. So what I want to kind of like jump ahead to a little bit, because he finds him. The chapter is called "I Wrestle Santa Claus" or Santa's Evil Twin, because he's an old bearded man, looks very dirty, smells ocean bad, is how he describes the smell. But once he finally gets a hold of him and tricks him into the water so he could use his Poseidon Kid strength to win this battle. As Nereus is like, okay, you got one question, that's the rule. Percy fights his instinct. And you talk about this a lot on your page, about how having such a close relationship with his friends and how much he loves them and cares about them is not his fatal flaw. Because if it was his fatal flaw, he would have used that one question here on how do I find Annabeth. But no, he says, what is the monster we are looking for? And it does turn out to be the wrong question. He probably should have asked a different one, because Nereus is like, oh yeah, it's right below us. Okay, bye.
Sure. Bye.
But yeah, I do wanted to bring up that like he had his chance to seek out Annabeth instead of following this quest. But he sat there and in his head just went through, okay, Zoe's going to want me to ask about Artemis. Chiron would tell me to ask about the quest. So I'm going to ask what I think is the most leading question for all 3 of these things.
Yeah, he's like, well, I could ask about Annabeth, but the most important thing actually is like where this thing is that's supposed to kill the gods. That's the most pressing issue we have to deal with right now. And then after that, we can deal with finding Artemis and Annabeth. It's my point always is that it's the funniest thing in the entire world that comes up as a point in this book. This happened in this book, and this is like what he's doing in the like. There's many times in this book so far where he could just do like just go purely for Annabeth, but he doesn't do that. And I think it's so funny because Thalia is right there, and she's actually doing that stuff. Like she is hardcore for Luke still. at this point, and is like defending him and things like that. And it's like I was talking about this with somebody else, but I think that you can argue that her like sacrificing herself before times, like when she originally died, was her being loyal to Luke, like her being like, I don't want Luke to die because that would be like too painful, so I'm just gonna die instead. And it's like she has loyalty to people in a way that is extremely detrimental, not only to like herself and her like self-worth or like her happiness, but also just everyone else around her too. And like she's the one that has these issues. Like he can understand like when you have to put your own need, like out of everybody in this book series, Percy is intimately aware with the concept of putting his own personal needs aside to make everyone else happy. Mm-hmm. That's not a problem for him.
Yeah.
Hello.
It might be begrudging at times, but he does it.
Yeah. Like he doesn't want to do it. He wishes that he didn't have to, but he does it like consistently. He will do it in ways that other people fight a lot harder about doing that. So
Yeah. So when Nereus says, okay, what that you're looking for is right below, that's when the Ophiotaurus Bessie shows up again. And I think it's funny that Grover can actually understand Bessie, but like Percy wasn't able to, even though like theoretically you would think it would be the other way around because it's like a sea animal.
So old that even so this was one of those moments where I was like, I love Percy so much because the fact that they're like, oh, best, like, first of all, them being like, oh, why didn't you ever tell us about this? And it's like, because you guys all suck. That's why he never told you about this. Why would he tell you anything when you're constantly yelling at him and saying that he's less than you in every possible turn? Hello, no wonder why he didn't tell you any of this stuff. Anyway, the thing that I love so much about him is that when they're like, oh yeah, if you kill this thing, you could possibly take out the gods, and nobody, and like him immediately asking like what would actually happen, and they're like, oh, nobody knows what would happen. And he's like, well, that's a terrible idea in like 17 different ways. But the fact that the line, like the thing that he thinks is like, how could anybody kill Bessie? She's so cute. And I'm like, I love you so much that is like the way that you think of like, how could anybody kill Bessie? She's the cutest, most wonderful, adorable little animal on the planet. That's how I sound like when I talk to animals. And like when I go to the zoo, I literally sit there and talk to animals and like ask them how they're doing and how is their day going and all this sort of stuff. My mom does it too. And so I was like, that is, and the fact that like Percy is like, no, we can't kill this animal, it's too cute. And everyone else like, and Thalia literally like dissociates or something because she's thinking so hard about, I want to kill this damn animal, that Percy is like, you can't kill the animal, they're my best friend. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, so like to back up a bit, so Zoe explains what Bessie is. She says it's an Ophiotaurus, and in the last Titan War, we were told that whoever sacrificed this thing would be like the victor of the Titan War, but at the last second, Zeus had a kite swoop in and grab its entrails so that like they could do the sacrificial part, even though they weren't the ones that killed the animal. And meanwhile, Bessie is like mooing loudly every time they mention the word sacrifice or entrails.
I love it so much also how Percy and Grover, but especially Percy, was like, can you not say that word? Because the sweet little child is really upset right now.
Exactly. But then they get interrupted by Dr. Thorne, who basically like is like, hey kids, now that you know what this is, we were planning on having Talia be the one to sacrifice this in 2 days when she turns 16. And let's see, so I think it's before he arrives, but after Zoe had explained. Let me see, is that where we're at in this part that I said it? Let's see. Talia sat on the dock. This is what you're talking about, the dissociating. She stretched out her hand. Bessie went right to her. Talia placed her hand on his head. Bessie shivered. Talia's expression bothered me. She almost looked hungry. We have to protect him, I told her. If Luke gets a hold of him, Luke wouldn't hesitate, Talia muttered. The power to overthrow Olympus, that's huge. And I feel like this is the moment where she is recognizing the similarities between her and Luke. And I do think it's a moment of awakening for her, even though there's part of her that's considering it because she's like, well, shit, this is everything Luke is literally working for right in front of my face. This is the power to, what do they call it? Olympus's bane in the prophecy. And I have to wonder, had she not gone down the way that she did, if she would have been on Luke's side in the beginning, like after.
Absolutely. 100%. Like if you want to be honest about it, if Percy never showed up at camp, Annabeth would have joined Luke. Like she literally tells him after the siren scene in Sea of Monsters that she would have joined Luke. He's like asking him, like, haven't you ever thought about wanting to do that? And Percy's like, absolutely not. No. Do I not think that I could decide what is right for millions and billions of people? But Annabeth is like, yeah, I agree. Both of them would have joined Luke, absolutely. Especially Thalia, with how like loyal she is to him. He would have joined him. and be doing absolutely horrible things. She like the whole thing when I'm rereading this book, especially, that's like very obvious to me, is that Luke is just literally doing anything humanly possible to find somebody else to house Kronos in their body so that he doesn't have to do it. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, oh, maybe we can get Percy to do it. No, Percy hates me too much, so he's not going to do it. Okay, so we can bring back Thalia. Maybe Thalia can deal with Percy, and then she can be the one to do it for me, so I don't have to do it. But like she absolutely would have done that. She would have been the one to do it. Like, she really was thinking about it at this part. Like, she was honestly thinking about it, and it's kind of shocking but it makes sense to me in like a golden child way, because to me, like, golden children have this like idea that is like kind of how they end up in that position, is they have this idea that if they like befriend people who are more powerful than them, that they can like get power from them and then like get what they want. And like scapegoats are like, no. Like, powerful people are never going to actually give us what we want. And so like Percy never considers any of these things, because he's like, killing the gods, something bad is going to happen to somebody. I don't know what it means, so I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to join Luke because he's hurting everybody that I actually care about. He's hurting all the demigod kids. And I don't want to like overthrow Olympus. There are other ways to like get the gods to change besides just trying to kill all their children. But like people like Thalia and Luke also are people that feel like if they have like an attachment to somebody who is more powerful than them, that they can use that power to like dominate over other people and make people do what they want finally. And it's a very like seductive sort of feeling like, oh, if I just am nice to this horrible person, then they'll just like give me everything that I've ever wanted, and I'll finally have control over people the way that I have always wanted to have, but I can't have. And I think it's kind of amazing because in the beginning of this book, during like the capture the flag fight, Thalia is like yelling like, for Zeus, before she goes out to fight. And now at the end of the book, she's like, maybe I'll just kill my dad instead. And it's like, it is that fast of how she can like be still yelling like in like deference to him when she's going into battle. But then when this stuff happens, she's like, or maybe I'll just kill him instead so I can be more powerful and I don't have to deal with him anymore. And it's just kind of like a shocking thing that happens with them. It always surprises me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, the way I would put it is being a golden child is privilege. It's privilege within your family. It's having a place for, like, not really doing anything most of the time. And when you learn that there are ways to make that same privilege happen outside of your home, it's very, very tempting. It can be very tempting. I was always a teacher's pet. Like, you look at Rory Gilmore, she knew what she was doing. She plays the helpless little lamb a lot. But if you, like, okay, this is the part of Rory Gilmore's story that I think not a lot of, which is when she was working at that newspaper. If you, like, okay, this is the part of Rory Gilmore's story that I think not a lot of people pay attention to, which is when she was working at that newspaper for Logan's dad. And all of the people around her loved her at that newspaper. You know, everyone focuses in on the Logan's dad part because that's when he told her, oh, you wouldn't cut it as a journalist. And she melts down for a whole season. So people don't realize while she was there, she literally befriended everybody. She was everybody's favorite person. She was getting everybody coffee, like, and that is a golden child's, like, I am going to be the merry sunshine of everybody's life because I've been taught this. Rory does it in her classes while she's going through school. She does it at every workplace. She does it with her grandparents. And it's because she's learned that if I perform a certain way that pleases people with more power, it's going to take me places. And eventually that wears out because you're not as young and cute as you once were. You're not as, you know, like, you eventually do start to feel like it's bullshit and you can't do it the same after a while if you have any sort of conscience or morality. And it's hard to maintain that. So I can see at Talia's young age of I mean, she's currently 15, but she's only experienced life, until like 13, because she was a tree for a few years there. And so for her, this really is a moment where she has to decide, do I want to keep using this like place that I seem to have with no work at all for, what the Olympians say, or do I want to do my own thing and join Luke? And I mean, we know she eventually makes a good decision with this, but she's definitely being tempted here in a way that I don't think she fully understands yet.
No, and like Percy during this whole like section of the book is like trying to point out to her how they're trying to tempt you to turn against me. And she's just like so angry about everything that she like can't even like see it and won't even recognize it. And I do think that that is like a side effect of the golden child thing, is that the like belief that you are right and that there's no way that somebody could be like outsmarting you or that they could be noticing something that you're not, is a very frustrating part of that dynamic, where like I still could not get my sister to listen to me about like the most basic things. If she thinks that I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. I can tell her 4 times in a row that she's wrong, and it takes that amount of time to get her to even like consider that I'm right and that she's wrong. And it's just, Thalia is just so angry that she's just not even like considering what Percy is saying during like this section of the book until like the very end, and realizing like, oh, maybe he was actually right about all of this.
Yeah.
So the parts that we haven't even like read yet, but yeah, it's just like I feel like it's a red flag for like your personality in this great moment of time when you are like the linchpin of the villain's plan, because they know that you would be the one to agree with you. And that's like Thalia during this whole book, is that they know that she's way more likely to join Luke and agree with them, and they're right. Like she does most of the time. She ends up like not doing anything really bad, but it could very easily have not gone that way if Percy just like wasn't there.
Yeah.
That was really like the only difference. Percy was there to like stop to try to interrupt that stuff, and like him just like being Percy made her like realize like, yeah, no, he's actually a really nice kid and I don't want to do this stuff to him. So that like snapped her out of it. But without that, like if they just like took her from like the school or something, it might have been like a very different situation.
Yeah, definitely agreed. And especially because I don't think she ever got a good debrief after untreeifying, like she never got a good, like talk about it with anybody probably. I doubt Chiron was having a little mini therapy session with her about like, what was it like to be a tree and to be poisoned and like, to almost die, but still not kind of die. So she's in a very vulnerable place right now, which I know Luke is thinking I can exploit, because the last thing this girl remembers is defending me with her life.
Yeah. Yeah. And Luke, like we know, he already said it in Sea of Monsters. He thinks that Thalia would join him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's going into it believing that that's going to happen at some point. And it's like up to her to prove him wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Which she does, granted, but still it becomes very like tense.
Yes. Yeah, so what ends up happening is Dr. Thorne appears, and he seems to be going rogue because he's just on his own. He's like, you know what, if I capture you guys, I'm back in their good graces, so let's go for it. And the kids, in this battle, they know they're not going to win. They're against mercenaries with actual guns, actual mortal guns. And so that's when they, let's see, I'm trying to think of what happens first.
Oh, wait, before we do that, one thing I did want to say about where Percy gives up his coat,
Yes.
the lion's coat. One thing about that I like that fits with his personality is him thinking like, well, I looked up to Hercules my whole life because I heard all of these great quests that he went on and all this stuff. But now that I've met Zoe and I see that he took credit for things that he didn't actually do, even though I've looked up to him and idolized him my entire life, I don't want to be around him anymore. And
Yeah.
so I'm just not gonna like give this up because I realize that I don't actually want to be like Hercules because he wasn't actually a nice person. And just the way that he can do that, like idolize somebody when he was a kid, but then once he realizes that they're not actually a good person, like immediately just like change, like shift and like go with the right thing. He will never join Luke ever. Like he could have been at camp from the age of like 6 on. He never would have joined him. As soon as Luke changed, he would have been like, okay, you're just another person like making me feel sad, so I'm not gonna like you anymore, even though I thought you were a great person before this. It wouldn't have mattered how long he knew him because that's just what he's like.
Yeah, well, we're not quite there yet because the Ophiuchus is there during the Dr. Thorne fight, but it is really poignant that like he takes a look at her. What did I know I underlined something with that, but like he takes a look at Zoe and it's just like, yeah, I'm not doing this. Like I am gladly giving this up. But so to get back to the Dr. Thorne fight, so they decide mid-battle that they have to reach out to camp and get Chiron. I don't know what they thought Chiron would do, but that's what they decide to do.
They need help. That's all they know how to do.
And like meanwhile, Dr. Thorne is like trying to hype up Talia into joining their side. And let's see, so he says, you know it's the right choice, your friend Luke recognized it. You shall be reunited with him. And Percy's like, come on, snap out of it. She looked up at me the way she had the morning she woke up on Half-Blood Hill, dazed and uncertain. It was almost like she didn't know me. And he asked a reminder, your father helped you. He sent the metal angels and he turned you into a tree so you didn't die. Like, and I know that for her because, you know, or Dr. Thorne was saying, your father abandoned you. Like, she probably had all of those thoughts. She probably had the, like, he let me almost die, but you didn't die. Like, that's the thing. Like, how many Half-Bloods would have died in that situation?
A lot of Half-Bloods die after this, and they just die.
Yeah.
Like, mom's just dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's not, like, Hades didn't find, like, a way to save her at the very last second. Like, he did with, you know, Sally.
Mm-hmm.
That's a point to think about with Hades, but he didn't do that. Like, there's a lot of demigods that die in the next few books, and none of them are, like, basically put in, like, a stasis place where they could maybe one day come back. They're just dead.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, like, a big deal that he did try to do that, to try to do something for her instead of just, like, letting her die. He could have just let her die like everybody else lets their kids die.
Yeah, and the fact that it's Percy reminding her too is kind of interesting because you know Percy knows that Zeus isn't shit. Like that Zeus is a terrible dad, but at the same time, like he knows what's at stake here if she joins Luke's side, that like Luke's about to go on a half-blood murdering spree essentially, and that you know, this overthrow of Olympus is not going to be bloodless.
Yes,
So,
and also, like, the thing that we were saying all earlier about Sally,
mm-hmm.
he's definitely somebody that would understand, like, complex situations because that's his entire life. And so he would be someone that would be able to be like, the gods are horrible, but also your dad did save your life, and so please don't kill all of them because they do try to help us sometimes, even if they are abusive and awful, but, like, killing them all isn't the way to, like, solve anything. Like, he's very easily able to, like, see those two sides without, like, taking the very black and white stance of, like, the gods are perfect and never do anything wrong, or let's just burn them all alive. Because neither one of those are actually, like, accurate for who they are.
Yeah. Let's see. So, as they're fighting, Zoe tells Percy, you can escape by sea. You should go call your father for help. And he's like, wait, call for help? I've got an idea. And so he uses Riptide to bust a pipe and create a rainbow, which they then use to call camp.
This is like my, like, southeastern Wisconsin rant, because Rick Riordan writes that they find a water fountain. We in southeastern Wisconsin invented them, and we call them bubblers. So I need everyone to know that when he said they found a water fountain, I was picturing a giant water fountain that you would see in like the middle of a park on like next to like a tourist trap thing on like the San Francisco Bay. And I'm like, and I was stopped and I was like, there's no water fountains over there by all the homeless people. What are they? And I was like, they mean a fucking bubbler. And then he calls it like a drinking fountain the next time. And I was just like, this is the weird. I kept picturing in my mind them knocking over a giant water fountain because that's all I think when I hear the word water fountain. And I was just like, this is so weird. And this only happens if you're from this part of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think that that's a thing that they call it around here.
Not even a thing in the other parts of the state, but the person who invented it called it that. And so you can never make us change our minds because we will never change our minds about that. Like, when I went to college at a college that was like right by the Illinois border, and so there's some people there from Illinois. For like half of the school year, one of our Illinois roommates would be like, "Oh, meet us by the water fountain," and the other half of us would be like, "Where is there a water fountain on campus?" Like, we were so confused. And then literally in like November of like the fall semester, it finally occurred to me like, oh, you mean a bubbler? And they were like, yeah. And we're like, we have been so confused for 3 months about what the fuck you're talking about. And so that was really funny to imagine Percy just going like through like a giant water fountain or just like jumping into one like they do in the TV show. And I was just like, this can't be right.
Yeah, so they call for camp, but they get Mr. D. And Mr. D, once again, is helpful but not helpful. Like, he's only helpful at the very last second. But they're literally fighting while they are on this call with him. He can see they are in danger. There are guns. And he's like, are you going to say please? Like, he's fucking with Percy. And Percy is like, okay, I see everybody's about to die. I would literally never say please to you, sir. But like, okay, please help us.
Yeah. I cannot, I'm going to try to put it into words, but I cannot say how much I hated this part. Because if anyone's ever heard me mention my dad and been like, what was it like living with him? That scene is what it was like living with him. I was like, you are being my dad right now, and I actually want to jump into this book and strangle you to death. Because that is exactly what it is like to live with somebody that abusive, where he is begging him, like, I am going to die. Please help us not die. And he's like, I just want to eat pizza. And it's like, Percy is just like, we're just going to die. Like, he's just panicking. Like, this God, the idea that, like, this God has so much power, he can very easily save them without even trying. And they know that. And they just sit there and make you beg for it anyway. And make you beg and plead for them to do it. Like, you know how dangerous this God is. So you don't want to ask them for help if you don't have to. But you literally have no other choice. And they're basically on their knees begging them. Like, if you don't help me, I am going to die. And he's like, I'm not going to help you unless you say please. And it's like, you have never talked to me in any sort of nice way in the history of your life, but I have to sit here and like degrade myself to get you to even pretend like you care about me. You really don't. You just want me to have to beg because it makes you feel good to know that you have total and complete control and domination over me, that there is nothing that they can do. You just have to take it. They have all of the power. They have all of the control, and you can do absolutely nothing to stop them from doing it. You are at their mercy. And then especially when he does help them, it is fucking terrifying. I was glad that Rick Riordan didn't make it like a joke, that he made those people go like literally insane. And I was really glad he didn't make it a joke and had Percy say how absolutely terrifying it was that Dionysus showed up, made all of them literally lose their minds, and that is the way that they won the battle because they no longer could fight them. And So he went and like helped them, but after he was there, they felt even he was more scared and like just horrified than he was before he even started. And so like you don't want to ask these people for help because they don't respect you. They treat you like absolute garbage. And you know how terrifying they are. But the few times you have to help them, you get help, I guess, but then you leave feeling even worse than you did before they were there because they're terrifying. Like when I had a lot of bullies when I was in school, like I was the most unpopular kid in school from the time that I can remember. Like I have memories when I was in first grade of kids at my school making me cry in the bathroom because they were like talking and laughing at me through the bathroom stall when I was 6. And so like that is something that always happened to me when I never told my dad about any of that stuff because he was more dangerous. Like he was more dangerous than any of those. I was genuinely afraid of what he would do to those kids. Like I have this one memory when I was like probably like 7, like in like first grade or something, and it was the 90s, so I was like for some reason our after school program wasn't happening that day, and so it was like me and like 2 other kids just like sitting there at school by ourselves, like waiting for our parents to come pick us up. And this one boy was like flinging like a jump rope at me, and it did hurt when he was like hitting me with it. And my dad was the first parent who showed up, and I could see like the kid's face like change, like he thought that I was going to tell my dad about what he was doing so that he would get in trouble. I didn't say shit. I like got up and walked out with my dad and left because even 7-year-old me was like, if I tell my dad what this kid was doing, he might like actually like hurt him. Like my dad would be much scarier than anything this kid was doing to me. And so I like literally went through life trying to do anything I could so that he wouldn't find out anything about my life because I genuinely didn't know what he would do. Like when I was like 15, he called a job that I got that I didn't know he did this. He called the place and threatened to sue them if they didn't hire me. And so that my high school job that I had for 3.5 years, I realized that they never fired me or anything like that. When there were times when they should have because I didn't want to come into work when we had plans, and they scheduled me anyway. And I just like had my mom call and say that I was sick when I obviously wasn't. They never fired me because they were afraid of my dad. And I thought I got that job all those years because they just liked me, when in actuality, they did that just because they were afraid of my dad. That's the kind of stuff that he would do. He knew I was trying to get a job at a grocery store, so he called them and threatened to sue them. And like Dionysus is that version of like, he just leaves and he's like, all right, I'm going to go back and like eat my pizza. Like it was like nothing for him. Like literally nothing. And they're like literally sitting there like horrified. And also like, if he didn't do that for us, we would have been dead right now.
Yeah.
But like, was it even worth it to ask him for help? Because he calls Percy by his actual name for the very first time. And it's like, did you call him by his actual name because you felt like you made him feel like absolute like shit? And there was like no like lower of a feeling he could possibly have in this moment? Because the last time you talked to him, you told him that you hoped that he would die on the quest. So it's like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do with that. Like the last time you talked to him, you wanted to push him off of a skyscraper and said that you hoped that he would be the one that died on this quest and left. And then the next time was this interaction, and I'm just like, no wonder why I hated him. Like I remember when I watched the show, I really hated him, but I didn't remember why I hated him so much. And I'm like, oh, now I know why I hated you so much. Like, just no.
Yeah, I mean, so the reason that Percy actually says please is because he sees the terror on Talia's face, and he's like, she is literally in the same exact situation that happened right before she turned into a tree, where she thinks she's going to go down defending all of us, and I can't let this happen. But of course, so the way that he helps them, I can kind of understand where Rick got this mythology from, and the main myth I would like, the Dionysus myth that comes to mind for me is, so Dionysus's mother was a mortal. She was a mortal woman, Semele, but um, after Dionysus was born, his aunts, her sisters, were like, "Oh yeah, she didn't actually have a baby with Zeus. She had a baby with some grifter, and now she's dead." And like, they were talking mad shit. Dionysus is not a real god, which then led to his cousin, who was leader. I want to say Crete because everywhere is Crete in ancient Greek myth, but he was leader of somewhere. And he was telling everybody, we're not going to recognize Dionysus as a god because he's not real. My mom and my aunt told me so. So Dionysus, in this tragedy, he bewitches all of the women of the town into this drunken kind of stupor sort of thing. And his cousin's mom, he makes her think that she took down a lion by herself. She did not take down a lion, and that trophy of a head she carried into town later in the tragedy was her son's head. So he drives people mad in a way that is like unthinkable. And of course, Rick adds in like vines growing along things as dramatic effect, but the idea of wine equals drunkenness equals like that's what his power is, what I think we're getting at. Because back then, wine was religious, it was sacred, they thought that they had this magical drink that could make them commune with the gods. But like, of course, you could also take it too far because it was very, very diluted back then. And if you didn't add water and honey to it, you were drinking like the most alcoholic alcohol ever. So yeah, what he's doing is essentially driving these people mad, which is canonically one of his powers.
Yeah, and it just feels accurate for not only my dad, but anybody else like him. So that's pretty much what they do, is they just drive us insane.
So like, and Percy doesn't even really say thank you, which like he points out, because of course, why are you going to? Because Percy's just like, how did you do that? And so he basically is like, oh, whatever, the mortals will come out of it eventually. Which, is probably part of what was on Percy's mind of like, oh shit, there's all these mortals here that are acting like animals right now. But one thing that he says, like, I think just very hits on the golden child struggle, which is, it says, he stared resentfully at Talia. I hope you learned your lesson, girl. It isn't easy to resist power, is it? And that really is the golden child struggle. It's like you have this power and this privilege in your family, and you have to learn that the way that you execute it matters. It's why I made like a joking post on TikTok, like, here's my golden child way of causing chaos. Compliment your scapegoated sibling. You can use the power for good. You really can. And I would say that my brother probably has a much better quality of life with me not fulfilling the golden child role and actively making sure that he gets recognized for his accomplishments, at least with the parent that I'm in contact with. But like, it's a lot of power to resist, because my dad's still throwing all the compliments my way, even though I'm currently unemployed and don't really have friends.
Yeah. And well, I can say, as somebody who is like golden child sister, never did any of that stuff, is that his quality of life is definitely better, because my quality of life would be better if she was not doing that stuff that she still is. So it does make a big difference, and it is like a huge thing. It also is just like a golden child thing that Dionysus shows up and is like, Percy, you're garbage, but Thalia, I hope you learned your lesson and that you got something out of this whole thing. Okay, goodbye. Like, every god that talks to her in this book has this like built-in respect for her when she hasn't actually done anything to prove like to be really worthy of that necessarily. And they, like, at the same time, are talking down to him when he's the one that's actually done everything. Like, gone on all these quests and succeeded in ways that, she didn't and nobody else did. And it's that whole feeling of, like, it feels more like when the gods talk to her, they're, like, parents that are, like, trying to get you to learn a lesson, like Mr. Rogers style or something. And when they're talking to him, they turn into, like, abusive monsters. There's, like, just they're like two different people when they talk to her and when they talk to him. And it's so weird to just watch that happen with like every god that they interact with in this book.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when you unpick your golden child experience, you can see places where that happened. Like, I learned very recently that my brother paid his own college tuition and I didn't. I did know that he paid for his own cars. I've gotten hand-me-down cars every time I've needed one. Like, I literally have never had to buy a car. What's the new one that I found out this weekend? I was like, you remember how when we would have fevers, Mom thought the thing was to give us popsicles? And he was like, what popsicle? Like, I never got popsicles when I was... The chapter with, like, he kind of tells them which way to go in a way that only Zoe really realizes. And so she's like, oh yeah, I gotta go home now. So they know that they're headed to the Mount of Despair, which is where the Apples of the Hesperity are, Ladon, the Draken. At this point, they still had Bessie with them, but at the beginning of the next chapter is where they part ways with Bessie, and they decide that the best thing to do is to have Grover leave with Bessie to go back towards camp because Bessie doesn't know the way, and also because he can actually communicate with him. So, like, yeah, it just makes sense. And as you said, Percy sacrifices to his dad in order to, you know, like, try to assure safe passage for Grover, which he hopes includes being able to breathe underwater. Yeah. And it gives up the Heracles lion skin, which, yeah, like, it's such a big thing. And it also just, like, it's funny that it's after an interaction with Mr. D as well, because Mr. D was like, you're not shit, just ask Zoe later. And he, like, Zoe is the whole reason. He realizes they're going back to the place where she was with Heracles. And he's like, yeah, this thing's bad. Bye. And just drops it into the water where it disintegrates and hopefully does ensure Grover's safe passage.
Mm-hmm. Like, that was my favorite thing, is when they figured out that Percy was her protector, and so she's just following him around everywhere he goes, to try to protect him. And that's just always so funny to me, because Artemis was trying so hard to find it, and it just, like, imprints on Percy instead. And
it does in a way that, like, I understand, even had he been more communicative with the group, this isn't something that would have come up. You know, like, he's probably been doing these silly little side quests underwater that he talked about in the beginning for so long without telling anybody the exact things that were happening. Like, maybe an anecdote here and there with Grover, but I don't see Percy thinking anything significant happened because he turned a boat over that was stuck on some sort of mythical sea creature.
No, he does stuff like that all the time to, like, help whatever. Like, even when they're in the river before they get to the dam, he's talking about how, like, Nereids are always asking him for, like, help, or always talking about something, that there's always something going on with them. Mm-hmm. And so, like, that's just his role as being a Poseidon kid, that he just deals with that stuff. So for him, that's not anything out of the norm that wouldn't get his attention.
Yeah.
In the way that it would for maybe somebody else. Like, I don't know if, like, thinking about it, like, I don't know if the other big three kids necessarily do things like that, like, because there's, like, lightning for Zeus, and just, like, well, there's maybe a little bit of that for Hades, but it's obviously very different because it involves dead people. But there is a little bit of things like that with Hades, but at least for Zeus, with, like, Thalia, I don't know what she would, I don't think anything would really come to her in the same way. I can't think of what would. But so maybe they just don't know that like, big three kids or kids of gods do stuff like that, to help, like, the area that they, like, their parents are kind of in charge of. Mm-hmm. So it just wouldn't be, like, something anyway.
Or maybe they don't even actually listen when, you know, nature's asking for their help. It would be somebody like Percy who's like, somebody needs my help. Shit, okay.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, I'll go help you. That's fine.
Yeah. So the reason that they parted ways, though, was because it was slowing them down. They had to stay by water to keep it by their side. And so they needed to move faster because to get to the is it a grove like the grove of the Hesperides, they need to go at sunset because they're goddesses of, you know, like of the sunset. So that's when they decide we need a car, and we know somebody who has a car. We have to go see Annabeth's dad. Yeah. So this is where we get introduced to her dad, who he gives Xenophilius Lovegood vibes. Like, kind of to me, it's the idea that like tortured genius in a way, very quirky, and really only cares about his specialty. Everything else can fall by the wayside. But it's interesting that when Percy gets to the house, he's not saying anything that he expects because he knows Annabeth doesn't like being here. Annabeth feels like her relationship with her immortal family is not good and not healthy. But it seems like when he actually does get there, that it's not at all like that, that maybe that's just negative self-talk that she only really expresses to these half-bloods who have similar kind of experiences, but it doesn't seem to align with the reality of the house that she was living in.
Well, and the thing about that I thought was interesting too is the difference between when somebody is abusing you, like physically, like what Percy was dealing with Gabe, versus like emotional abuse and like neglect. It's very different things, and I will admit that, especially when I was growing up, that sometimes I would have like friends, or just I would hear people talk about like the more like neglect side of abuse, and I would be like, I don't know what you're upset about, because I would be really happy if my dad would leave me alone. And so it feels like to Percy, I can understand why he would be like, this house looks really nice. It just like looks like a normal family. The stepmom comes and like gives them like food, but it also doesn't mean that there isn't that, like, all of her needs could technically be met without her like emotional needs ever actually being met. And I think that's more like Annabeth's whole thing, especially even with like Athena, is that feeling like her needs aren't, like, everything is technically there, like she doesn't have to worry about food or whatever, but she doesn't feel like that real connection to like her dad. And especially I thought it was funny with like her stepmom, that I was like, you are such like the, like, you know, I'm supposed to like look a certain way sort of person, where like a bunch of random kids just like show up, and she just shows up 5 minutes later with like snacks for all of them. I was like, I grew up in a small town with a bunch of rich people who are all white. She's not white actually, but I met so many people like that I like could picture exactly who she was supposed to be. And it was just like funny to like picture that, and like, yeah, somebody like that would make Annabeth would like hate that. I think she would hate that, of the whole like prim and proper, I'm doing everything that is like polite and proper and nice. But like people like that, sometimes you just want to shake them and be like, but what do you actually think? Or like, can you stop just like performing for 10 seconds of your life? Because I can tell that you just don't like me. And I wish that you would just admit it, instead of like being overly polite to me all the time because you know that you're supposed to. And that was like the feeling that I got from this stuff. Like, I don't think that Annabeth's dad is like evil, but at the same time, she did run away from home when she was 7. That's and true. Doesn't want to live there. And it's not like he's horrible or anything like that in that way. Like, he's not irredeemable in the way that somebody like Gabe would be, and is obviously. But it is still like a difficult sort of weird situation that like that I love that like Percy is like surprised that they look like normal people, because he's heard such horrible things about them that he just like expects them to look bad, and then they look so normal, and you're like, how does somebody like that possibly look so normal, knowing like what I know about them? And it's like, oh, maybe they're not, like, I understand totally why Percy especially would be like, maybe they're not that bad. And maybe like Annabeth can figure something out like here, and she can have some sort of relationship with her dad. because yeah, that is like a thing that you wish you could have. And so and she honestly could have it.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that her dad doesn't like that she still doesn't feel like different and from away from everyone else in this family like she probably would. And she is obviously very different from everybody else in this family.
Yeah, like I get the sense, and here's my one Harry Potter comparison for like, you know, I already said the Xenophilius Lovegood thing, but to keep going on that, the reason why Xenophilius and Luna have such a good relationship is because they get neurodivergent, like little tangents about the same things. And they could very easily overlap some of those things because architecture and history can go hand in hand. But it seems like they haven't quite gotten there, and it seems like he really doesn't care or doesn't pay enough attention to anything outside of that. So I can see how that can translate into neglectful father. He's like fully buried in his work, and she feels forgotten because he's over there playing with his Lego sets and writing essays about them.
I thought it was so funny how Zoe is like, oh, we went to that battle that you're studying, and it was because it was so lame, and Artemis was trying to show everybody how stupid men are by like how bad this battle went. And I was like, you know, there's one of the things that fandom thinks is that Annabeth could be autistic. And listening to him completely derail being angry at somebody because they know something that he doesn't about his special interest. And is like, wait, what do you know about this? Can you explain to me how this battle happened if you were actually there? Mm-hmm. And he like doesn't care that she just insulted him to his face anymore. And I'm like, that is an autistic person.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to know what you know, and then you can like move on with your life and keep insulting me if you really want to, as long as you give me the information that I want.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, now I see where that's coming from, because yeah, that definitely fits like her dad. But otherwise, I liked this, just like, it was interesting to have the idea of them being exposed to like Annabeth and like this part of her world that nobody has ever seen before. And they did get what they wanted out of it, where he was like, just take my car. Mm-hmm. Whatever. I don't care. Just drive it. And they're like, okay. And he's just, the one thing you should take out of this whole interaction was his like one line where he's like, oh, I was brought here by like an anonymous benefactor who's really interested in my airplanes. Mm-hmm. Gosh, I wonder who that would be.
Yeah, well, and I mean, he wants to take them in an airplane at first before they're like, no, we just need your car. Like,
that becomes that's a thing later.
Yeah,
his airplanes.
Well, and I mean, a little bit on your point with Mrs. Chase, like, as you were saying that, I was thinking of somebody. You've heard me bitch about these people, so my husband's best friend's family are like in-laws that I never asked for. You know, my actual in-laws are great people. His best friend's family are, they're so sickeningly sweet, and it feels so phony that I've never felt like I can integrate with them. Like, especially his middle sister. She's the one, she's always, hi, sweetie, how are you doing? And like, the woman is unemployed, but gets fully ready every day just to drop off her kids. Like, are you psycho? You're gonna actually get dressed just to walk your kids down the street?
Like to be in line with like what's going on TikTok this week, I feel like a lot of people have realized that about Mama Tot in the same way, that she is like overly sweet and like saccharine, where it's like, this isn't real. This is not how like actual people talk. Like when you actually care about someone and really want to know how they're doing, they're not like over the top like that. It just like feels fake somehow, or like disingenuous, and it's like, can you calm down? Yeah, and talk to me like a normal person, because now I'm just gonna, whenever somebody does that to me, I immediately just like tell them nothing and like give them like one word answers, because they're annoying me so much that I just want them to go away. And there are like some extended family that I've met that have been like that. I haven't talked to them in a while, but still every once in a while, and they'll just be like all over the top like that, and I'll be like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing? Are you working somewhere?" "Yep." And then the other person, usually like my mom, will be like, "She works here," and they're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
But I just can't do it. Just get away.
I would always end up just playing with the kids because I just couldn't do it. So I'd be, because they have kids around the same age as William, so like I would just be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go hang out with the kids and play this game with them since nobody else is paying attention to them. Everybody else is drinking and talking, and I don't want to talk to you guys. Bye.
That's really funny that that his family is like that, considering like his sun sign. Like, I feel like you're a stereotype, sir.
Oh my god. Yeah. But anyways, I don't know that we can say for sure that Mrs. Chase is this way from just this interaction, but maybe it is that case of she has trouble relating to Annabeth, and so she comes off saccharine. And so because she's coming off saccharine, Annabeth's like, obviously you don't like me because you have to fake being nice. When it may just be a miscommunication, but we don't know yet. It's hard to describe motive with just this little scene.
Mm-hmm. And it is also a thing of like, even if they were really nice, Annabeth still wouldn't want to live with them because they're so far away from camp and everyone that she actually cares about. And so it's very possible that she reads into the things that they do that are like annoying because they're like overly polite, but she finds it even worse because she doesn't want to be there anyway. Mm-hmm. So there is always that chance to, I just know you can hope that their relationship gets better, even if they never are like on the same page necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, so they do get his car, and so they're able to then drive. They're going to, it's Mount Tamalpais? Is that how you say it? Mount
is like really cool like that. Like the roads are really like scary because there's like nothing there. It's just like the side of a mountain. And I remember the most that it was so cool being like above like the fog, that you would be like standing there at the top and you would see like the fog and then like the Golden Gate Bridge wave down below, and I'm like, this is so cool, besides like the giant trees and everything. But so when they were talking about how like mysterious and weird the drive was to get there and how it is a place that feels very like magical. Mm-hmm. Could be a dragon there that nobody can see because it is like that kind of different like that. Yeah, and the mist, both physical or like real mist and metaphorical mist of the book series, is up here as they're driving, which like I thought they said something like it looked like Zoe was even disappearing in the car if they weren't concentrating on her enough. But I think that more has to do with her being a former Hesperide than it does. Yeah. So, but while they're on this drive, they notice the Princess Andromeda parked on the way. And so this is when Percy realizes, oh, the reason they were going through the Panama Canal was to go from New York to California, which, like, I was talking to my brother about it. I sent you the screenshot, but like he mentioned that when the canal was handed back to Panama, that it did get a little bit more corrupt. So would make sense for something like how they're paying off the mortal mercenaries. They could have paid off somebody to get through the canal. Mm-hmm. They definitely would have. It wouldn't even been hard for them. Mm-hmm.
And then as they're driving, out of nowhere, the car just kind of explodes. And yeah, this is where they're all questioning, wait, is this the last line of the prophecy where like somebody's father's going to be bad? It can't be mine. We're on the road. Which is like Percy's first thought process of like, okay, it's not my parent. Is it Talia's? Did we get hit by lightning? What's going on?
Mm-hmm. And then he's immediately trying to convince Thalia that like your dad didn't just try to kill you.
Yeah, I think he was like, it couldn't have been a lightning bolt, but like, of course, they're all kind of thinking like, oh shoot, is he trying to stop her before she gets to Kronos? Because, like, honestly, at this point, it would make sense for that last line to be about her because of that brief moment of hesitation she had when she found out that she had the key to winning the war the entire time.
Yeah. It could easily have been him trying to stop her from possibly doing that after she was tempted already. But it also seems more likely for it to be like what Percy thought, that Kronos is trying to make it look like that just happened so that you'll turn against your dad when you get up there and you're talking to Luke.
Yeah.
It could be honestly either one. Like, it's not impossible, I guess what I'm trying to say, that Zeus would have done that, but it's also possible that Kronos was just trying to manipulate her a little bit more before they actually get there, to try to, like, a one last, like, sort of effort to get her to change sides before they have, like, the fight at the very end.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it really would make sense for him to do it there. So they get to the Garden of Twilight, which Percy recognizes immediately because it's been in his dream with Zoe and Heracles. He says, if it hadn't been for the enormous dragon, the garden would have been the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. Let's see. And then he describes the apples. He's like, they didn't look yellow. They actually looked golden, and they probably would be very delicious from the way that they smelled.
One thing I do want to, like, bring up when we're talking about, like, Ladon is that this is the quest that Luke did twice.
Yeah.
He went after Ladon twice. He like Golden Child out to, like, the highest potential and got Hermes to let Chiron let him leave camp alone without having another two people on the quest with him, because he wanted to be able to prove he could do it on his own, I guess, and then, like, lost twice. And then that is the thing that made him turn against the gods, is that he failed on his quest. Not that the gods are actually doing something bad, but because he lost, and so now the world has to end. Like, yeah. That's literally what his thought process was. I feel embarrassed because I thought I was going to prove that I was the best out of everybody, but now I lost twice, and I have this scar on my face to make me think about it all the time, and camp doesn't let anybody leave after that because he got hurt. And Chiron was finally able to like, close down quests unless they absolutely have to. And to him, that was, like, the worst thing that's ever happened to him, because then he doesn't get to show off. Mm-hmm. And so that's anyway, just, like, thinking about, like, I think Hermes even has to, like, bail him out of the second quest so that he doesn't, like, die there. And that makes him, like, obviously even more angry. But, like, considering, like, how they're trying to, like, how scary, like, Ladon sounds, it's kind of completely batshit that he thought he could fight this thing by himself.
Yeah, 100 heads. That alone would be like, I'm not fucking with that thing. How do I evade it? And I am not a person that is geared towards stealth missions. When I was playing Legend of Zelda, I avoided the Yiga clan hideout for, like, ever, because I didn't want to do a stealth mission. I still haven't completed that one quest in Breath of the Wild where you have to accompany the little Korok to a sign, because I can't do stealth. And even I would be like, this is a stealth mission. Yeah, so
from this part that I remember is how when Zoe comes up and sees her sisters, and they're all like, I don't see a sister here. And yeah. I was just like, wow, that sounds so familiar. Oh my god. Stop it.
I also thought it was interesting that, like, Percy says he never would have realized how beautiful Zoe was until he saw her sisters. That is respect. That is a respectful king, because he is like, this girl is not romantically inclined. She's a hunter. She's off limits. So he never even thought about it. He never even was like, let me see past, her personality and look at her looks and try to objectify her. No, that's not Percy.
No, he just sees her as a very respectful, like, authoritarian figure, and that's in a good way. Like, somebody who's in charge. He doesn't think about her in that way, which, like, that's one of my things that I like the most about Rick Riordan, about how he writes Percy around other women, that he never, like, questions them in ways that a lot of like male writers will do in books like this. Like he never questions that Annabeth is the best in the first book either. He just immediately accepts that and moves on with his day. And so there's never a moment where Percy's like, oh, but you're a girl though. Like he would actually punch you in the head if like another guy said something like that in his general vicinity. Yeah. And it's just, I always enjoy like having a teen like or kids series written like that, just to give boys like a clue that there's nothing less than about being a girl.
Yeah.
It's a good idea to keep that in mind. What else was I going to say? I can't remember if this happened already, but there was a part in here where Zoe was talking about how she's going to go back to like Mount Tam, and she's going to fight Ladon, and she's going to do these things because and they're telling her like, you're probably not going to survive. And she's saying like, yeah, I'm probably not going to survive like whatever's going to happen with me and my dad either. And so she's basically like, I'm not going to survive that anyway, so I might as well just like go back and do this fight, even because no matter what, I'm probably not going to survive through it. And I hate that because she's doing that because she thinks she needs to do this to like help Artemis. She's like, well, Artemis needs to be saved, so I need to come, even if it means that my dad is probably going to kill me. And I'm like, Artemis definitely groomed her way back in the day to get her to join the Hunters, and is still like taking advantage of that. And I'm like, you're sacrificing yourself for the person that you are willing to sacrifice yourself to because you think that they saved you from this horrible abusive person in your life, but they're also using you too. And you don't even notice it because you're so dedicated to them that you can't even see it because this other bad person in your life was taking up so much space that you don't even notice how they're using you too. And I'm like, this is literally like helpless self-destruction that scapegoats do of like, well, nothing's going to work out right, so why should I even try? It's like that sort of thing. And I'm just like, I'm so upset by this. I really don't like this at all. And especially this part, I was like reading this part, trying not to cry for reasons that I can't tell you that will become more evident like later. And I was just like so upset about that she's just like giving up. And I'm like, you don't have to do this to save Artemis. Somebody else can do it. Like, you don't have to do this. And I hate it so much. I hate any time that somebody just like gives in to just succumbing to their overly abusive, violent dad. I did it all the time. So I hate seeing somebody else do it because I want you to make a different decision than I did.
Yeah, well, and her sisters are like threatening her. Yeah. They're like, we're gonna wake him. Like, and so she's like, hey, wake up. Like, I'm not afraid of you, which was an odd choice, especially because she underestimated Percy. You can tell she was willing to go down fighting that dragon, but when Percy was about to step in to help her, that's when she's like, okay, I gotta get away from here, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. The mythology thing also to keep in mind is this dragon is not just there to guard the trees, but also to be a thorn in Atlas's side. It's why he is stationed there. So it's part of his punishment to get eternally poked by this dragon. And the fact that she's not afraid of it, that she's willing to go down with it up until it's like, yeah, they're not going to let you go down with it. I don't know. It just got to me for a second.
Yeah. It's just bad.
Yeah. Well, and he even remembers that it was Heracles failed in a head-on fight with Ladon. So they somehow make it past the dragon, which, like, it's not especially, it seems like they just kind of run as fast as they can after Zoe wakes it up and distracts it for a second, but they're able to leave without it chasing them. And so once they get up, they see ruins of Mount Orthus. I didn't look up too much on Mount Orthus, so we're going to have to put a pin in that. And then they see Artemis holding up the sky. And this is when Percy realizes, oh, it wasn't like a cavern that was falling on her. She's literally holding up the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. And we have Zoe trying to rip at the celestial bronze that's holding her in place. And then all of a sudden, everybody kind of steps forward. So we have the general stepping forward, which is Zoe's dad, Atlas. We have Luke, who it's noted that he looks much worse even than the last time that Percy saw him earlier in the book. And by Luke's side is Annabeth, who she has her hands cuffed behind her back, so I'm assuming celestial bronze as well, and she's gagged, which, like, I don't know why. I'm throwing in a scene when they actually filmed this of Luke putting this on her, of Luke restraining her and doing the whole, like, it's a villain trope, right? Or, like, they're restraining you, but they're also simultaneously, like, telling you their plan or trying to, like, butter you up in a way. I could see him playing with her in that moment that he tied her up.
That has to be happening with, like, one of the things I think about a lot about the third season that even Charlie has mentioned in interviews already is that during the third season, there's likely going to be a lot of scenes where Luke is fucking with Annabeth's mind.
Of course, yeah.
And that during the third season of the show, we're going to have to watch that. And, like, they should watch it. They, like, make us watch it. They absolutely should do that, even if I'm, like, screaming, like, literally screaming when, like, watching it about how horrible it would be. But I'm sure he was, like, doing heavy psychological, like, warfare and towards her the entire time she was there with them and couldn't get away. Like we're going to eventually read this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. But when things do, like, you know, stop finally, at least she's, like, free from them. The first thing she asked Percy is, like, did you think that I was dead? And he's like, no. Like, I never believed that you were dead. And I'm like, I feel like Luke was telling her the entire time, nobody cares about you. No one's coming after you. Everyone thinks that you're dead already. No one's ever going to save you, so you might as well just, like, do what I want and join me because no one else is going to come after you and nobody else cares about you. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that she said that right away, I was just like, Luke has to have said things like that to her to make her believe that she should just join them.
Yeah.
Ew.
People need to see, the Luke apologists need to see some of this shit live in action.
They really do, because they genuinely, like, worry. Like, I don't mean to sound, like, over dramatic or whatever, but they generally worry me because there are people like Luke was made this character because there's so many people like him in the world. And it just, like, freaks me out, like, that one sound from, like, Succession, the, like, thing where, the thing of, like, put your clothes back on, let me talk about blah, 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 blah. Like, I ignore the put your clothes back on part because never would there be a time where I even pretended to tell somebody to take their clothes off. When I like, posted something, and I posted something basically saying that there's all these videos under this sound of people trying to justify what villains are doing by saying that their victims would do it too if they had, like, a chance to. And I'm like, what about the other way around of, like pointing, like, looking at the things that the villain is doing and how horrible they are, instead of trying to make them less bad by making their victim look somehow worse. Because I saw, like, 5 videos in a row of people being like, Luke wasn't that bad, he just wanted a revolution. And, like, Percy would have joined Luke if he, like, if Sally did this and this, or like, Percy, like, agrees with Luke because he's mad at the gods later on, and I was like, no, he doesn't. like you can be mad at the gods without wanting to kill everybody. There's, like, but it's just, like, that whole thing that was coming up, and I was just like, this is, like, fascinating to me that people will go out of their way to try to have Luke be, like, okay. And it's like, you do understand, right, that you're trying to make Percy into a worse person so that the things that Luke does to him isn't that bad. You could do it the other way around. You could notice that Luke is a horrible person because he had the choice to stop because Percy also had the choice to stop, and he stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if he stopped, Luke could do it too. But they don't focus on that part. They focus on like how to make Luke a better, like more, I guess, I don't even know. Relatable is not the right word. But like just like an apologist for him. And I'm like, why are you apologizing for him?
Well, yeah, and I mean, you've talked about how he got to the place that he was. His motivation for wanting a revolution does not come from a good place. It comes from a hurt ego. And none of it has to do with, like, you know, the Olympians in general. It has to do more with his hurt ego. So it's a situation of a broken clock being on the right time at that moment, you know? Like, it's not him being right about everything.
It's like a thing of like every scary dictator in the world has like a thing that they say they're doing this for, but it's obviously not what they're actually doing it for. Like Hitler said that he was doing this stuff because he wanted to help Germany's economy. That obviously wasn't what he just wanted total control and domination over everybody. You're not like helping your economy by invading all these countries and starting a world war. And in the same way with like, you know, Mr. Orangeface, he says the same thing. Oh, it's just about economic anxiety. And it's like, no, it's not. You just hate everybody and want to be able to be in control of everything and just get your way. And so it's like, that's literally Luke. He doesn't actually care, because if he did care, he would not be killing the people that he's saying he's doing this for. Like, if you actually care about like what the demigods are going through, you wouldn't be doing things that are just making their life worse and also killing them.
Like, and also, in terms of like god parents, Hermes has done a lot for Luke compared to some of these other gods.
Yeah, it's the whole like golden child thing of him, that Hermes like got him to go on a quest twice by himself. He's mad at Hermes because he you know, didn't let him die on the second quest, and is just thinking like, oh, if he wouldn't have stopped me, I would have like succeeded. And like, there are things obviously that Hermes did when he was a kid that was horrible, obviously, in the way that it is with like every other god. But when you really look at it, like, Hermes is literally like running around the world like trying to make excuses for him. He even does it after he's gone. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, there's a lot worse situations that people have gone through. Even as horrific as the things that he goes through is, every kid at camp has a story like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, your pain is not uniquely special or different from everybody else's, but you're making all those people's pain worse because you're also making them go through this stuff on top of it. And so it's like, if you actually did like want a revolution or whatever, or you actually were doing this because the gods were wrong and you wanted to like, you know, prove their point or like, you know, put them in their place or whatever, you would have done something that would have done that instead of just killing their children.
Yeah.
Like, you're just, and also you wouldn't be aligning yourself with their dad. Like, you're just aligning yourself with the more powerful being so that you can be a god and you can kill everybody that you don't want to be alive anymore. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Like, you just want to be able to have total control. And that, like, every horrible person acts like they care about something else to justify, like, I just care about everybody. That's why I need to control every single thing about your life. Mm-hmm. Like, that's obviously not true. Like, I could say that about my dad. Like, oh, my dad just like really loved me. And it's like, yeah, I guess. But like, his way of proving that he loved me was like controlling every single aspect of my life, destroying who I was as a person from the inside out for my entire life. So I'm pretty sure that I would have been fine without him doing that for me, and that he wasn't actually helping me. Yeah. And it's like that sort of thing. Like, every abusive person thinks, they literally say that to you of like, I'm just trying to help you, and why won't you let me help me, and blah blah blah. And you're like, what are you talking about? But that's generally how they see themselves, but that doesn't mean that it's actually reality. And that's the part that like concerns me about people defending him. And it's like, yeah, he says that, but he's obviously not telling the truth. Like, it becomes very clear very, very quickly that that's not actually what's happening here. But I do know that the TV show is going to force people to see it because they have to actually watch him act this stuff out.
Well, yeah, and there's so much stuff in between that we don't know. Like, like we've talked about this a little bit here on this pod, we don't know what was going on with the mortal people that were on the Princess Andromeda. Are they just monster food, or what are they under a spell and still on the ship for? We don't know. Like they've alluded to lost campers at the beginning of this book. Does that mean they died or they joined Luke's side? We don't know. Like, those are things that can be answered. And like whatever he was getting up to on the Princess Andromeda from book 2 on, like we just don't know. And so we haven't seen all of the worst things that he's done. We've seen a snapshot in every book.
Yeah, and at the end of this, like this part where he's talking to Thalia, he's like, "Oh, it's nice to see you again." And they're just sitting there telling her like, "Oh, we brought you back to life because we thought you would kill Percy."
Yeah.
And like obviously just showing like she was sitting there like telling Percy to his face that like you don't matter to the people most important to you, to try to hurt him because Percy just brought up the fact that Luke is evil now. And here he is literally telling her like, "I just brought you back because I thought you would kill Percy for me so I didn't have to do it." And it's like he doesn't give a fuck about her. Like, obviously. And she's been like trying to defend him this entire book, and it's like, wow, you really don't care about me at all in any way, shape, or form. That's why I think it's so funny when people post the like, we're a family, or you said family, Luke, and it's like, yeah, and then he killed a bunch of people. Like, I don't care that Luke said that when she was like 8. It doesn't matter anymore.
Literally does not.
Like, he's sitting there telling Thalia, like, "Oh yeah, I poisoned your tree on purpose, and now that you're back, I wanted you to kill Percy, and I'm disappointed that you actually got to know him, and so you're not going to kill him for me anymore." Just like, okay, that's fun. That's wonderful. And especially, there's another podcast that I just saw like one of their videos on my FYP the other day, and they're reading the next book. And their post just like offhand mentions that in that book, Luke is asking people for like, he's saying like, "I'll pay money for like powerful demigods." He is talking about 11-year-old Nico. That he was offering people money for them to kidnap and or kill 11-year-old Nico. He's 11.
Yeah.
And he's trying to get people to do that to him. He's in 5th grade. Like, that's like my whole thing with Luke, is that he makes so many active choices. And that's the point of Luke, is that, yeah, he could be like Percy, but he actively chooses not to be at every single part of his life. He makes the active choice not to be like that. So you can be sad that he decided to be like this many years ago, but either way, he's like this. And you can like mourn that, because it is sad that abusive people are like that, and that nobody ever was able to like kind of get them back on the right path, or that they just never wanted to themselves. It is a sad thing to realize that. But it's also not a thing to realize it so much that you start like chipping away at the things that they're actually doing. That's like the whole thing that always freaks me out, is when I see people, even with like fictional people, when they try to turn the fictional villain or victims they have into worse people so that the villain doesn't seem that bad. And it's like, that has real life consequences. Yeah. That's why people don't listen to us. Because they want to believe that we're somehow involved or culpable or also did something bad too. And it's like, no, we actually didn't. Most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, so we won't put up with any Luke shipping on this channel.
Yeah. We ship like Luke and his knife.
Yeah. That's about it. Let's see. So there's kind of a back and forth with the general, where he reveals himself like, "Yes, I'm Atlas, General of the Titans. Congratulations. I'll kill you presently as soon as I deal with this wretched girl." And Percy says, "You're not going to hurt Zoe. I won't let you." The general sneered, "You have no right to interfere, little hero. This is a family matter." And that's when Zoe's like, "Yep, that's my dad."
Also, like, the line of "you have no right to interfere, this is a family matter" gave me
They're all related.
aggressive flashbacks. Oh my god. Like, the amount of times my dad would say things like that to people to get people to stop asking questions is scary. I was like, somebody said that to Rick at some point, and he just like wrote that in there because don't get involved, little child, and try to stop me from murdering my daughter.
Yeah. Insane. And also, like, it's a family matter. Literally all of them are related, like, somehow. They're literally all related. They're all family. You're not in front of not family when it comes to the Olympians, so.
Yeah, like, don't let, like, TV show Percy hear you say that, because then he's just gonna start rattling off about how everything is about family, and, like, you're trying to, like, be nice to my grandfather to get mad at my dad and my uncle. Like, don't just...
Yeah, like, you're working with my grandpa. Wouldn't you be like my great uncle or something?
Technically, I think I'm related to you. So do you want to kill me too?
Yep.
Probably.
The whole point of this story and why I think Heracles is the theme is to show that, you know, like, not all heroes in a sense, you know, all of the speech that Mr. D gave right away. This is Percy beating those stereotypes. This is Percy saying, I'm not just going to use maiden helpers and throw them away. He has literally been chasing his maiden helper, so to speak, in Annabeth this entire book to save her life. Mm-hmm. And I can't say that any of the Greek heroes, like, I can't say a single one of them would have kept going in a situation this helpless. You know, like, it would have eventually been like, oh, the monsters got her. Oh, no. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll keep giving you guys show news as it comes on. It's probably going to be trickles now that they've announced Talia. There's the only other major casting announcement I think we're still waiting on is the Allison person. I mean, they could cast Selena Beauregard, but she's not really relevant until this book even, because this book is the one where we have like a talking scene with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's other little characters like Cersei and Polyphemus and stuff that could be announced at some point, but they probably would announce them all at once. Because they're not like major characters, are only going to be in like one episode.
I could see them announcing when they have like a trailer, mm-hmm. you know, with maybe a little bit more footage.
Yeah, and that will be in like a month. Like pretty much a month from now is when the D23 thing is in Brazil, and they're probably going to put out a fuller length trailer for that, I would imagine.
Yeah, and probably those casting announcements.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll leave it there for this week, and we are reading 17 and 18 for next week.
Yep.
Yeah? All right.